Jen, don't forget to introduce everybody because we get stage fright.
What's up, everybody? We are live. Welcome to another edition of He Say, She Say Singles Chat on the YLC channel. I am Jen. This is Lawrence, Dana, Joseph, Joe, Manaway, Elisha, and Shonda. And we are here for our weekly conversation. So we're going to take a few minutes and let you guys come in. If you want to take a moment and just share. It's going to be a phenomenal conversation tonight. We know that some of our regular viewers are not used to seeing a new light-skinned face on the scene. So we want you to go ahead and shout out Pastor Joe in the comments all the way from the West Coast. So I'm super excited. Go ahead and share. I'm super excited for another just week on YLC TV. We're going to go ahead and give it up for our founder and visionary, the Elder Mark Moore Jr. Woo! We love you so much, and we thank you for allowing us to just share our thoughts and share how we feel. So I'm gonna go ahead and share too, and we can get this show on the road. Come in and say hey to us, y'all. As y'all come in, say hey. Ooh, say hey. Hi guys. Hey guys. It's going to be a great conversation tonight. So while everyone is sharing, I want to play a quick game of this or that. I didn't even tell them that I'm going to do this, just to kind of break it up a little bit, because it may get a little serious tonight. So we're just going to play this and that, this or that, so you can get to know us a little bit. You can also drop, I want you to play as well, so drop it in the comments, whichever one you prefer. So do you prefer talking or texting? Good, right? It's good. Talking or texting?
When? To start?
Oh gosh, just talking or texting. Either way.
Texting.
Data says talking. We know Dr. Shonda wants to text. Who else? Come on.
You have a pen pal.
I'm gonna go text.
You gonna go text? What's up, Pastor Joe?
I may have to go talking.
Talking?
Because I'm not that good of a texter. I'm a phantom texter. That's what I call it. Sometimes I'll read a text and in my mind I reply, but I just so I probably have to go talk.
Okay, talking. Elisha, talking or texting?
Talking.
So put in the comments if you prefer talking or texting. The next one is frozen yogurt or ice cream. Which one do you prefer?
All day, baby.
Ice cream? Okay. Everybody's going with
Ice cream.
At least it depends on the conversation for talking or text. So the majority says ice cream.
I'm gonna go dissent on this one and go yogurt.
Yogurt? Okay. Frozen yogurt.
That help you with point, man.
All right. The next one is frozen football or basketball. Football or basketball.
Football.
Football.
Y'all all know the answer to this one.
What?
He's football for sure. That's easy.
Basketball.
Yeah, he's football. I'm basketball though.
Okay. Football. Basketball. What you say, Dana?
Shopping.
I prefer football players. Amen. Let's go with okay. The Lord is my shepherd. He knows what I want. Shouting music or worship music? Come on, let's get a little deep. Shouting music or worship music? Put it in the comments.
That's not a this or that question though.
Why
I'm sorry.
not?
That's not
Say it again, Jane. What was it?
Shouting music or worship music?
That's not this or that.
That's not a this or that.
That's a this and that. Like they both work together.
That's okay. Good, so you shout and then you go into another realm. Okay. All right. Well,
or you start in that realm and then you work your way up to a shout. It's
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, we can go with that. Facebook or Instagram?
IG.
Instagram.
Instagram all day.
Instagram for sure.
Instagram all day.
Yes.
Mm.
But shout out to Facebook.
Instagram.
Girl.
I'm a
Yes, we
Facebook
thank God
girl.
for Facebook.
You are- you are my-
Facebook.
I think I'm a face. So I'll probably be the oddball out. I'm more of a Facebook.
No, I'm with you, Jen. I think more Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. Creative dates or expensive dates?
Both.
Both.
No. This or that. This or that.
I'm a
Creative.
Yeah.
Creative.
I'll let Dana say a good date.
Oh Lord, a good date. Okay.
Y'all let Dana
That's
say
it.
Creative.
Yeah, you
Creative.
gotta go creative.
I'll be the lone expensive. I'll let somebody else think of it.
Okay. Long distance love or local love?
Long distance.
Local.
Long and local.
Long. What?
Long and local. Huh?
Long
Okay.
and local.
Holy.
what Mark said.
What he say?
Holiness.
He said holy.
Holiness. Well, they both can be holy. We thank God for holy people. We thank God for holy people. Both of them can be holy. All right, so we're going to jump into the conversation tonight. Thank you guys for playing. Just wanted to break it up a little bit. If you haven't shared already, go ahead and share. So, because I do feel some type of way, guys. So I wanted to start here. So I wanted to give us a little sunshine because I feel some type of way. So we've
Okay.
been talking about, we all know, if you've been watching the news, if you've been watching the internet streets, just the climate of racial tension. We're fighting for Black Lives Matter against police brutality. Corona is still out there. It's a lot happening, right? So I am a little grieved, and I want us to have a real conversation about how we treat each other. So Oluwatoyin Salu was murdered this week. She was an activist in Tallahassee, and she was leading a lot of the Black Lives Matter marches and protests. She was only 19 years old. On Twitter last week, she talked about her being sexually assaulted, and then she ran away from her home life. Wasn't really pleasant. She found refuge at a church. She met a guy, and he was supposed to help her collect her things to, I guess, get to another safe place. He sexually assaulted her. After she talked about that on Twitter, she went missing, and her body was found a week later. So I know this is a little heavy, but we talk about real things. I guess my feelings is, I feel like in all of this, especially even with Breonna Taylor, that Black men do not protect Black women. And I could be wrong, but I want to know, like, I feel like when it comes to us, when it comes to, this is, please hear my heart. This is not in a means to divide us, but to have a honest conversation. Okay. So I want to be very clear on that. But I feel like when a Black man is murdered in the streets by the hands of police, another man was killed, Rashad Brooks. I hope I said his name. I think I said his name correctly. We rally. We're there. We're organizing. We're present. And when it comes to something happening to one of us, I feel like we don't always get that in return. So let me know if I'm tripping, or how you guys feel about that.
I'd like to hear what the other ladies think about it.
Okay.
I think it's a 50-50 kind of thing. I think it just depends on the type of people that you're surrounded by. I've been with or had circles of friends where I almost can't do anything because the Black men are so overprotective. But I've also had instances where they probably could have stepped up a little bit more. But overwhelmingly, my experience is that I'm kind of held in esteem enough to be protected. Like, that's my little sister, even if younger than me, So
How you feel, Dr. Shonda?
So I feel like, Jen, I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said this is something that we witness, especially when Black women are murdered, because, you know, we were just talking about Breonna Taylor on here. Sis died like 3 months ago, and we're just now hearing her name actually in the media. And that just speaks to the patriarchal society that we live in. So the male stories are perpetuated more than the female stories, which goes back to your point of Black women not feeling protected. For me personally, so like Dana, I felt protected by Black men, because that was just the type of home environment that I grew up in. Even in college, like my frat brothers were constantly checking in on us, seeing what we needed. So that was just my personal experience, and it's unfortunate that not all Black women have that same experience.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead, guys. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Do you feel like we're protected as a whole? Because one of the things I expressed on social media yesterday was that I feel like there was a time where it didn't matter whether men knew you or not. They looked out for you. Like they walked you to your car. They held the door. Like it wasn't that they didn't even have to know you. Like if a man saw a man raising his voice in the street at a female, it would automatically become his business. Like, what's up? What's going on? You okay? Like, and I feel like that's not there anymore. So my father is ex-military. And I have a brother that's 13 years older than me. So I personally feel protected. But as a whole, I just feel like there isn't like this like family jail like we used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Would you think that maybe culturally, because there was a season during with like hip hop movements and all that stuff that women are just kind of degraded to like those sex objects that just get used and then thrown away, and so perhaps that could be what contributes to perhaps people not caring as much as maybe they should, because like you said, and then too with like I guess domestic situations and men. I guess feeling more comfortable assaulting women than perhaps they did before is probably a cultural thing that's been extended.
I think it's a little bit of both, but I want to hear the men. Like, am I tripping? Like, is it me? Like, or is it like? Do you feel like? Because I know we talk about dating and stuff, and we're going to get there. But like, even Elisha, actually, he's been saying this for the last couple of weeks of how it doesn't matter who the female is. He looks out for them. It doesn't have to be that he's dating them. And I thought that was a very like. It seems like it's traditional, but I feel like it's necessary. What y'all think?
I don't think we can equate what's going on in the media with what's real, right? I don't think we can equate real life to what we see in the news. Because if that would have been the case, we're looking at someone that was killed in the street a time ago before it actually got out to the news and it actually got out. And so I don't think we can equate the two. I also don't think we can equate morality as a whole to the situation, because we say there's more assault and things of that nature, which is true, but there is a little bit more of everything if we go back 100 years, right? There's a little bit more robbery, there's a little bit more murder. So in a time like now, what I don't want to do is say that it doesn't exist, because it does, but I do not want to equate it to some of the other things, because there's a regression in general of our moralities as people, the people that we are, especially some of us, the people of God that we were called to be. There is a regression in the way that we handle things in general. And so it might be just a tad unfair to attach it to some of the things that we see. But I would say the community has definitely, it's not as strong suited as it was before. That is very true. I think, and some people have been saying it in the comments, it is going to be relative to who is in your immediate surroundings. So whatever goes on social media and whatever goes on the news and on TV, you're protected based off of who's with you, right? I'm protected based off of the men that I surround myself with, the women that I surround myself with. When I go out, when I'm, those people that I call my accountability partners, those are the people that are held to that standard. And it just happens that in certain places, there is no standard in that setting. When you're going into certain neighborhoods and certain sides of town and things of that nature, that's not something that exists. We're blessed to be here at YLC and other spaces and church spaces that we might be a part of. And in those spaces, how we treat each other is the norm. from the top to the bottom, from the pulpit to the door. How we treat ourselves is the absolute norm for our communities, and especially here at YLC, a place where, you know, $10,000 will be set aside to make sure that people are taken care of in the event of an arrest during protest. These are not, you can't find that in every community or in every circle. And so it changes depending on your circle. And the news coverage, I believe news coverage and all of those things, we all know that it's biased. We all know that they set it to push a certain narrative. And so while things might be happening, they're not going to report it. Just back to that is, as soon as social media starts kicking off and a lot of things start getting broadcast on social media, we start seeing a lot of things that weren't getting aired on the news. And now they do. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't until not long ago that you would actually see a killing on the news or the information of it. But once people started taping it, when people started catching it live on their phones and on Periscope at first, and then Facebook, and now it's continuing, now that's the trend. And so even in our community, as we take up for each other, I believe in that same way, we need to start now taking up for each other via social media, via media in general. And now us taking that into our account, I believe that can now spark, and it's, I don't want it, this is going to sound a certain way, I don't want it to, but it's the reality. It will make it trendy. The fact that our women are not taken care of, us putting a spotlight to that, us making sure that, listen, we're not, it's tough for us, it's tough for them too. Let's also shine a light on there.
Anyone else?
I feel like
y'all agree?
I feel like you guys are the ones who can tell us, right? Like, I don't feel like I'm in a space to really say that it does or doesn't, or that you are. Or I think that's something that our women are experiencing it. And if that is what our women are telling us they are experiencing, then we have to accept that and do something about it. I understand the principle of it being maybe something about depending on your circle. I don't necessarily think it should matter, right? I don't think it should matter whether or not it's your circle. I think just as men, and I think I'm appreciative of you guys even bringing that up, because I know that's something that I do personally, but maybe it's something that we need more initiative to shine a light to say, hey, men, like, we have to be leaders. We have to be the ones who look after people. So I think the fact that you guys are saying that exists means that we have some work to do.
So I think that I hear you guys what you're saying, but I think, like, even when I talk about the media, I'm talking about social media. I'm not just talking about the news. We already know they're going to report what they want to report. But for example, like, even the widespread of just disdain for Oluwatoyin was not there this week as much as it was there for George Floyd. So I know in the comments we're saying it's your tribe or it's the people that you're around, but should it matter if it's your tribe or not? Right. Especially for men of God. Like, shouldn't it be that we protect all women, and vice versa, that I honor all men, whether you're connected to me or not? And I think that I want to pose the question, do we think that it's because, some people say that chivalry is dead, or the uprising of the feminist movement? Because when I expressed my sentiments, a lot of my brothers came back and said, Jen, we try to look out for y'all. Like, we try to do certain things, but then I met with some resistance. I met with, I could hold my own doors, or you automatically thinking that that I like you. So do you think that when you're being a gentleman, do you get some resistance from women who want to be the independent woman and don't want you to do those things for them?
I think that chivalry goes a long way in it, Jen. No, first, no, you're not tripping.
Okay,
but I feel like us, as men, no matter what tribe or no matter who your people are, so to speak, I think that chivalry I was raised for chivalry to go beyond whoever you're trying to date or court. Like, my dad would always tell us, she may not be your girl, but she's somebody's. She's somebody's daughter. She's somebody's mama. She's somebody's sister. So you look after her the same way you would want somebody to look after yours. And in the same way, I think that we have to do better with speaking up, especially now. Like my brother Lawrence said, now that you all who are Black women have brought it to our attention even more, I think we have to do a better job. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that the men on this live or the ones who are watching us have a problem with doing it. But I think we have to be the conduits of change to kind of get the message out to be like, yo, y'all, like, she ain't your girl or your cousin or your mama or your sister to look after her. But you know what I'm saying? We gotta protect what's ours and always look after y'all.
Okay. So collectively, we're going to do a better job. Is that what
We
we're saying?
got to.
Collectively, we'll do a better job of looking after y'all. And I need you all to do it. I can't help it. At least I can't help it. And I need you all to do a better job with kind of like what you said, allowing us to be gentlemen. You know what I mean? Like, I can open my door. I know you can. I know you can pay for it. I know you can, pull your own. I know you can, but just allow me to, please.
Okay.
So we gonna work together, and we gonna work together in doing this.
Okay, that's good because that goes to my next point. Do you feel so? I feel a lot of my
Six don't like
women
people.
have been saying that Black women don't feel protected, but do you guys feel heard? Do you feel like that you're in safe spaces in which you can communicate your feelings, especially with the climate of everything that's going on right now? Do you feel that overall, so we're talking from an overall picture, not just you and your individual life, do you feel heard?
Mm. I think men are so heard that the moments that they aren't, they feel like it's some sort of detriment. It's like the person who's always had some form of privilege that has to like relinquish some of it. They feel like it's some sort of like degradation to them. I think we're
Mhm.
so like men's voices are so used to being heard as if we feel like there's such right. So my point to respond to you to what you're asking, Jen, is I feel heard as much as I'm willing to hear. And I think that's
Mhm.
fair. I think it's fair. At least this is just me talking. I feel like the more that I tend to lend my ear, the more other people are willing to lend theirs. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair to want to hear before having been heard, extending that to others if that's what you expect to be extended to you. So
Mhm.
that's just me. I feel heard as much as I'm willing to hear.
Mhm. Anybody else? So y'all feel heard. Y'all feel safe and
Now,
y'all good.
you
Yes,
said
ma'am.
generally, right? Not personally.
Yeah, just in general. Like, do you feel like when you say things, what when you say things, women listen to you? Because I hear that a lot. You know, my ears be to the streets, and I hear that men don't feel heard. So y'all say y'all feel heard. Is that what we're saying?
I do.
I know I personally do, and I think, as Lauren said, I don't think there's anyone like a man that's heard, as far as someone that's speaking all the time and someone's always listening, and it can't get out of whack, but it is true. But even on a personal note, there's people that are safe spaces. There's conversations and places that are safe spaces, and so I would say I'm heard.
But you also got to pick like who you want to hear you too, right? Like it's different if you're trying to be heard from somebody who's not emotionally healthy enough to hear anybody, right? That's not. I mean, you're gonna spin your wheels so much trying to be heard. But I mean, especially if we're talking about within the confines of a relationship,
Mhm.
um, like if they're not in a position to hear anything or anybody because there's some sort of like emotional imbalance that they have, I mean, you might as well give that up. But like if they are in that position and you are as well, then I personally have not been in a situation like that has been healthy and felt like I wasn't heard.
Okay. Do you feel respected? And men in the comments, because the reason why I'm going this way is because it's so easy for us to rally behind this movement now while it's hot. But we have to be consistent in communicating with each other as we move forward, as we ride this long wave of settling the playing field of injustice and inequality, right? So that's why I'm going there. So do you feel heard and respected? Y'all saying yes. Well, maybe
I
I
don't
got the
stay
wrong
anywhere
men.
where I'm not.
Huh?
I don't stay anywhere where I'm not.
Yeah,
Ooh,
but
that's
you
good.
realize
I
these
think that's what it
guys,
comes down to.
these guys on the screen are atypical. these aren't your typical Black men. These are all very exceptional men.
They be
So
lying a little
you're
bit.
asking them questions that they probably can't really
I mean, but
relate
even
to
so, Jen,
altogether.
like if I am in a position where I am not being respected, why would I lend myself to continue to be disrespected? That makes no sense. It doesn't do my heart any good, right? Like, so I have to put myself in a position where I'm not going to be continually hurt. So if I'm not going to be respected, I'm out. Like there's no oh, I don't feel respected. Okay, deuces, right? That and I don't look for situations in which I'm going to be disrespected. So typically and generally speaking, I don't feel disrespected. And I don't put I try not to put myself in a position where I am disrespected, meaning that I first show respect, I first listen, right? Those are things that we have to remember to do as men, where we're not guaranteed somebody's ear. They don't owe you anything, right? So when I think when you approach it the right way, I hardly am in positions where I feel unheard or disrespected.
How do you communicate that you're not being respected?
Mm.
Because it's easy to say that you feel respected, but we all know, like, and I'm not making a general consensus, but y'all don't be communicating that well. Just saying.
It's
So
not that
how
they
do
communicate
they
well,
communicate
Jen.
differently?
Not
They
fair.
communicate differently. They communicate
Communicate
differently.
differently.
So
Right.
how do you communicate that you don't feel respected? I can tell you how when I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
That's a good question too. Do you protect who doesn't respect you?
Do you protect
Wow.
who doesn't respect you? There's a certain level of so I think Dana did say it the best. I mean, the way that we're going to carry ourselves, at least the ones that the 6 people that are on the screen, the way we're going to carry ourselves, probably a little bit different than most. But even myself, I know for me, it doesn't take respect for me to be a decent human being, right? But what you're not going to do is disrespect me. But it doesn't take you don't owe me anything for me to be the person I'm supposed to be, and I'm going to be that person regardless of whatever happened. There's some people that things have probably went a certain way, and you know, I'm going to always be in a position where whatever is needed, I'm probably going to help out. Now, I'm not saying I'm about to be paying rent or doing anything like that, or even if it's a conversation. I am one of those people, like my circle is annoyed with me about how forgiving I am. But for me, that's for me. That's not for you. And I'm also not going to put myself in a position where you can take advantage of me, knowing that you can do whatever you want and get whatever you want. But I just feel like it's definitely our duty to, no matter how we feel, put out the certain behavior that we're supposed to put out. Like we're
So
called.
you would still protect me if you felt like I was disrespectful.
I
Like
would,
would
because I feel like I'm called to that as a man. I feel like I'm called to.
mm-mm.
I'm called to, and
Mhm.
that's just me. Like my people, they look at me and they're usually upset with me. We're dealing with certain situations, looking for certain things, looking at certain things a certain way. And I mean, I'll always be the oddball when it comes to that, and that's fine with me. But if I'm disrespected, I'll let it be known. Like I don't really appreciate that. Whatever, however that conversation goes. But if I'm in a position where something is going on and I have to react, I'm going to react not based on you respecting me or not respecting me. I'm going to react based on this situation is not right. Now, will I be in that position to see that in the first place if you disrespected me? I don't know. Because if we have
Mm.
a conversation and it goes a different way and we're not talking, I may not ever be in this position to see like, are you good or whatever the case. And that's just being honest. We might not never be in a certain kind of talking relationship. But
Mm.
if I do see it, I will step to it.
Okay. All right. So let's go here. Elise says, but how do you express that you're not feeling respected as a woman? I'm gonna give that to Dana and
No,
Shonda. Like, how
to
do
a
you?
woman. No, that it was a question
To a
to the
woman.
guy.
Oh, to a woman. Oh, sorry.
What he
I'm
wants
sorry.
to hear is their method of communicating
Because
to
they
who they're
keep.
with.
Because I
Right.
asked that question like 10 minutes ago, and they keep
I
going
think
around it.
to answer that question, no, to answer it directly, I think that a lot of it is subjective. So just communicating, when this happened at this time, I didn't feel respected. when you did this, I didn't feel respected. Or on a global level. Now I'm just saying on a more, prominent level, just us being able to communicate, all of us at this age that we're at now, we should be able to communicate when we don't feel respected. And in turn, you know what I'm saying, ask the woman, how do you feel respected? How can I keep you from feeling the way that I feel? But I think that it's more so subjective. You know what I mean?
And I think that's the important part, because when you talk about respect, at least by definition, it's having consideration for the other person, right? So
For sure.
the way that I consider you is going to be specific to you, versus maybe somebody else. So what might fly with somebody else may not fly with a different person. So if there are certain things that don't necessarily fly with me, or maybe that are problematic to me, or that might trigger me, like they say, yo, I'm not cool with that, then I have to be able to communicate, hey, listen, like when you use this tone, that's not okay with me, right? And I'm not saying that you're doing it maliciously, but it makes me feel a certain way and I don't like it. Now, by communicating that sets the expectation. Now, if they do not follow that expectation, or if they don't consider that expectation, at least try to, then that's when I feel disrespected, because that means you're not considering me. And I think that's how it's communicated. I felt like you just did not consider me in this, or you didn't consider how this would make me feel. And that is how I would do it. I would.
So y'all having these direct conversations. Somebody lied tonight, and it's okay. I mean, because this is a real kumbaya moment, and I feel like if it was just as kumbaya as this, we wouldn't have these problems. But it's okay. You can come with these politically correct answers if you want to. But that is not the truth.
What is the problem?
That's the thing, though. So
who's
what
not
Aaron's
handling
talking about is a comment that I saw pop up on the screen from a guy. I think it was Aaron, that said a lack of respect leads to a lack of communication, right? Like, and I think that's part of the issue,
right?
And this is something that I've discovered even within my own interpersonal relationships, not just people that I've been interested in dating, but all of my relationships. Something that I've discovered is that the way that I feel has a lot more to do with me than it does with them. Yeah. So I have to take ownership of that, and I have to be able to communicate, hey, this is something that is a thing for me. And when I'm upfront with that and setting those expectations, then the communication can continue to go, because I'm honest, I'm open, and I'm clear about what my expectations are within the confines of my relationship. Meaning that if I say I'm not going to raise my voice and speak to you in this manner, and I don't expect you to do the same with me, the moment that I hear it or the moment that I see it, I call it out. That's just me. And that allows us to continue to communicate without there's this tension that's like, you know what, like she's gonna keep talking like this, I'm not gonna like that, and I'm gonna shut down. Before I get to that point, I have to make it clear that this is the way that we can continue to communicate, right? So I think the problem is we shut down in our communication without being honest about the way that we feel. And I think that's about being honest with yourself before it is with being honest with somebody else.
Okay, so y'all having these direct conversations. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dana.
It's not that you're not communicating, because what we're equating communication with is all verbal. We know when you're feeling a certain way, if you shut down, if you give us a certain look. Communication is in your body language, it's in your facial expressions, it's in everything. So while you may not vocalize what you're feeling or vocalize certain things that you're feeling, you're still communicating. It's just we have to pick up on those cues to actually get you to vocalize or verbalize specifically what it is you're feeling, because you're still communicating one way or another, and everything.
Yeah, but you see the issue with that, though, Dana, is if I'm communicating with my facial expressions and all that, my body language, I can miscommunicate with that. So I feel like the onus of communication, which is me. Exactly. So I got to use my words, right? I got to be able to say, even though you see something in my face, I got to be able to say, hey, listen, when you said this, I really felt some kind of way about that, and I got to be okay with that as a man to say that, right? And just be open and honest with that without you having to read into all of that kind of stuff and say, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't have said that, or maybe it could have went a little differently, right? So I got to open up and be able to use my words and say, yeah, maybe you saw some discomfort, but let me tell you like where that came from.
How to interpret it. Because the thing is that's all about learning your partner. You know, if I'm quiet, if I make a certain expression, if I do a certain thing, you can kind of pick up on how I'm feeling, because that's a part of learning your partner and how they communicate or what have you. Everybody's not, you know, all that vocal. Lord.
Well, wait a minute though, because I think we're getting lost. I think we're getting lost in communicating with our partners. I'm talking about communicating with.
Share. If you're in the comments,
What is he doing? Why you have that
I'm
light
scared.
turning all weird?
I'm very
it's not
scared.
that good. Go share.
I just want to know. I'm over here hiding out, trying to figure out what are we talking about.
Wait a minute. Now, what you're not going to do is you're not going to come. Excuse me.
No.
Excuse me.
Let me explain to you. Not you this time. Not you this time. I'm gonna cut this lamp off because I had the light on so I could see some point. Here's what I'm trying to figure out. I want to, first of all, my sister said it in the comments. I want to give a round of applause for myself for selecting the most magical Negroes in the kingdom to be a part of this show. I have superpowers I didn't know I had, because I picked Super Lawrence, Super Elisha. That's better when he's not saying much, because I think I know where he is. But apparently I found the most magical Negroes in the kingdom that just know how to communicate. They just know where apparently all you single sisters have been saying there are no good men. You just needed to tune into the show, because I got all of them on this show. I'm trying to figure out.
Don't get nobody hemmed up. Hold up.
Oh my God.
Are we really suggesting that honor, respect, and communication are not intimately connected? Because I'm being funny, of course, I'm trying to be funny. These are incredible guys. Let me be very clear. That's no joke at all. But I do think that because they are so incredible, they may not represent the larger cross section of brothers out there. Because I'm gonna step out here and say it, because the magical Negroes won't say it. So I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Men, as a whole, sometimes struggle in our communication. And let's be very clear, very few things exacerbate that trouble more than the feeling of dishonor. Let's just be 100% raw and real and upfront. Men are triggered by respect. Honor and respect, in my mind, go hand in hand. Okay, so we can use them synonymously. But let's be true. Let's be honest. Men are triggered by our interpretation of respect. Women need to feel protected. Now, this is not just opinion at this point. This is Sociology 101. Now, our doctor, our resident professor is in the bottom right corner. She's quiet tonight. Surprise, surprise. For whatever reason, normally she's just chatty Cathy, but she's just monitoring tonight so she can break this thing down in a moment. But let's just be honest, women need to feel protected. That's physically, emotionally, spiritually. Women need to feel protected, and men need to feel protected as well. But far more important than protected for men is we need to feel respected. I need to know, as a man, I'm speaking on behalf of the brothers, we need to know that the woman of God in our life, whether it be romantic, whether it be platonic, whether it be family, what's most important to us is that we feel that there's a degree of respect that she has for us. And I'm not talking about that. I don't want anyone to be lost. I'm not talking about that in some kind of macho, abusive, aggressive sense. Not at all. That's a whole nother problem. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the basic sense of the word. I know that with all these other men out here, many of whom want your attention, are fighting for your affection, would love to have your eye, I need to know that when I walk in the room, there's something in you that stands up and says, that's my man of God. I need to know that when we have that unavoidable fight, altercation, we're going back and forth. When we have that, I need to know that there's a certain line you're not going to cross.
Mhm.
Y'all don't want to be real with me. I need to know there's a certain line you're not going to cross that goes into something else, because now I no longer feel respected. And it's hard for me to even try to lead something, a relationship, where I don't feel that I'm respected. Now, these other magical Negroes, they just know how to communicate. They can talk. They can push through. Respect. What is that? I'm just meek and lowly. Okay, whatever. And I'm gonna stand back in a second. Super Lawrence had all the right answers. Just Super Lawrence. I have no. He over there doing curls right now. You can't even see his arms working out at the same time. Just super Negro. I understand that, but I think that the respect thing is big for men. I just had to say that. Now, can one of you sisters tell me if I'm wrong, from your opinion, from your perspective? And I'm going to release the brothers. Y'all can be vulnerable. Ain't nobody watching but us. Y'all can tell the truth. Y'all can tell the truth. Even you, Lawrence. I'm talking primarily to you. Lawrence in the back wings. Just Jennifer, am I telling the truth?
You're telling the truth, but I think for me, I don't know when I'm going too far unless you tell me. And sometimes you tell me too late. So, or even, and not even just because I do have a big personality, right? And I do, sometimes I'm very vocal in whatever way that I am. So I think because we don't communicate well, or not, I won't say we won't, but sometimes the lines of communication are kind of fuzzy, then I don't know when it's too much. Now I know, of course, I shouldn't be calling you out of your name. I shouldn't be trying to belittle you or, things like that. But some men are more sensitive than others, right?
And can we acknowledge too that communication is a relative term?
Yeah.
Because all of us are raised from different settings, come from different backgrounds, different experiences.
That's true.
It's possible for me to think I communicated clearly and effectively, and you didn't hear a word I said, because you don't learn by what you hear. You learn by what you see, or you learn by what you feel, so forth and so on. So I think sometimes, back to that whole love language conversation, it's not just love language, it's communication language, it's honor language, it's all of that. I think we got to learn how to speak the same thing, as Paul said. It's a totally different context, but this principle applies. We got to learn how to speak the same thing so that I know what this means to you and you know what this means to me. But we're not going to have no kind of successful relationships if we don't learn that honor and communication are linked up. It's hard to communicate with somebody you don't respect or someone you feel that doesn't respect you.
That's true.
And I also think I want to be clear that it's not for me in this conversation. It's not just for somebody that I'm involved with, because when you do have a level of intimacy, you are careful about trying to honor and respect that person. You care about their feelings. You like them, so you're not maliciously trying to step on them. But even for the people, your brothers, your sisters, people that may be a little too much. How do we communicate so that everyone feels that they're heard and that they are protected? Because for me, it's very frustrating to try to push this movement, but everybody's not like, the accountability in our communities for each other is lacking. Like, this girl was like no. Like, there is no excuse for sexual assault. There is no cover up for things like that. There is no, like, the way, you may not know her or not, but you should still, bro, what's going on? You don't talk to her like that. Like, there used to be a time where men didn't even cuss in front of women. Now we know that these men of God,
not these super Negroes on this screen.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So we're not talking about you guys, but just like, you wouldn't even raise your voice. Like, you know what I mean? So I think.
Can I ask you a question, Jen?
Yes.
I want to ask you this, or I want to ask for you to carry it on. A serious question. And this is why y'all need to share, because I think this was going to take a little serious turn here. I saw a post in regard, I don't want to say her name wrong, complete tragedy, but I saw a post in regard to her assault and passing, and the whole situation makes me sick. But two thoughts. One, I said something in the comments before I jumped in. I think that we have to make a distinction in this case, because I've seen a lot of people comparing our activist sisters' coverage and the death of George Floyd, and they've used that as an example to highlight unfair, patriarchal systems. There's no denying that there is absolute patriarchy. But I think that in this case, is it worth at least mentioning that part of the outrage around George Floyd was because we all saw it. Nobody saw the death of Breonna Taylor. Nobody watched the death of our sister in Florida. And not just male and female, but even in male men of color, even in men of color when they died, there was a different level of outrage for George Floyd than there was for so many other. Ahmaud, right. There was such a different level because we all watched for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. We watched him slowly die. If you go even historically to the civil rights movement, one of the reasons that the Edmund Pettus Bridge was such a pivotal point is because white America, for the first time, got to see, physically see the treatment that people of color, they saw dogs being loosed on women and children. They saw bloody black men and women in suits and dresses because they were just taking off. So I think that the visual element plays a part. And I don't think it's fully fair to say we don't care about our sister because it didn't see the same coverage that George Floyd saw, because we didn't see the same event take place. Now, here's what I want to say. And this is what I want to ask. I don't have the answers, but I do have a question. I saw a very popular person, someone that I know and love, and they made a statement about the passing of our sister in Florida, and the approach that they made, and I really want to hear from JC and the guys on this. I'm gonna get out of here, bring Lawrence back in. But the approach that they made was, I want to apologize to all black women on behalf of black men because we have failed you. Now, I want to be honest. And this is why I need y'all to be mature in the comments and just kind of hear my heart here. Look very, very vulnerable. I'm sickened by the assault and death. I'm sickened by violence against women, and especially women of color. Let's be clear, all women matter. We know that. But that's never been up for debate when it comes to white women, especially in these United States. A black life can be taken on the suspicion that a white woman was not assaulted, but made to feel uncomfortable by something as simple and innocent as a whistle. All right. A white girl goes missing. That's wrong. No person should be assaulted. We know that. But a white woman goes missing in these United States, and it's on CNN, it's on MSNBC, it's on Fox, it's on everything because a white girl is missing. Black girls go missing every day in this country. Every day. Nobody knows their names. They're not on the cover of the neighborhood Gazette, much less a CNN. So I'm not trying to downplay anyone's life. Let's be clear with that. But in this case, I have a bit of a problem when we make the approach of black men have failed black women across the board. I have a problem with that because, one, I think that unintentionally it feeds the same generalization that we're fighting so hard to denounce. Right. When it comes to police brutality, we look at, and let's be this is for grown-ups tonight, okay? When we talk about police brutality, people of color, our first response, as it should be, is that law enforcement is wrong to generalize every black man in a hood as a rapist, a murderer, a drug dealer, fill in the blanks. Now, we say that in the face of FBI statistics that say that there are some of us that will shoot you in the right alley on the wrong night. Let's just be real. I'm not making the black on black crime argument because there's no such thing. Crime is crime. White people kill white people. Hispanic people kill Hispanic people. Black people kill black people. You typically do crime or commit crimes against the people that you live with. And even in 2020, you tend to live around people that look like you. So I'm not trying to make that argument, but it is unfair on one hand to expect others to look at us and say, you can't put us all in one category. Yes, there are black men that sell drugs. Yes, there are black men that do this, do that, whatever. But we want to all be treated as individuals.
Right.
Why then in this case, and I'm laying my argument, I'm getting out of it, why is it then in this case, it's okay to say all black men have failed because one black man was despicable? Is that a fair assessment for us to, on one hand, say you can't look at us and judge all of us by what you see on BET or by what you see in the rap video or by what you see on the 6 o'clock news for who robbed this and who sold that and who shot that? How then do we go from being individuals in that context to now all of us have failed in this context? That's the question that I wanted to ask. God bless you. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. Those are the words of prayer. Pray my strength in the Lord. I'll talk about that because I think we need to. Are we going to be all of us, or are we going to be individuals? Because if it's police brutality, we want to be individuals. I'm not a suspect. I'm a man. You don't know me. Don't judge me. Don't have a preconceived notion when you pull up on me at the light. Don't have prejudice against me. When it's a black man that kills a black woman, now it's all black men have failed. Is that right or is that wrong? God bless your heart.
I'm gonna just let y'all go ahead because I'm not gonna go off right now. Y'all go ahead.
I personally feel like it's not a fair assessment to say that all black men hasn't failed. It was just this one black man. And my frustration with the whole situation, well, one of my frustrations with the whole situation is that it just feeds the stereotype and the ill view of black men. Say, how can we say that your life matters, whatever, and you end up taking your own? Situations like this is especially difficult for me because my aunt was a victim of domestic violence and was killed, by her fiance's bare hands in broad daylight on the streets of New York. So that's why I personally feel like I have a responsibility, like I aforementioned, to really look after black women, because it's more than just a news clip, and stuff like this is so much more personable. But I don't feel like it's a fair assessment to say we've failed. But kind of like what you were alluding to, Jen, I think that we have been lax with checking one another as men and as brothers, and so that's kind of where I am with it.
Anybody else want to jump in?
I would go here with it. I feel like while that is fair, looking at it from the fact that I am a black man, I also think it's the same argument that some of us are fighting against with white people, where we're saying some white people are saying, I'm not that way, so you can't lump us all together. But it's like, okay, but collectively we do have an issue, right? And and I think it's incumbent upon, like you just said, it's incumbent upon us, those of us who aren't like that, right, to be the ones who step up and shift us into a space culturally and socially where that is no longer acceptable, right? Where the death that you die socially is so consequential that you at least think twice before you lay your hand on somebody. I think it's important that we do that, right? Because we don't want to be guilty of making that same argument to say like, well, I'm not that way, so we can't label us all that. No, that's not what we're doing. What we are saying is we have a responsibility, and it's time for us to step up and take charge of that. And yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. I don't take that on personally, and I don't get offended when we say black men have failed you. But I do take it personally when I see a black man who does something, because I know what it's like. I know that whenever there's a black man who does anything that gets any sort of press, whether he knows my name or not, represents me. That's a fact. That's how the world works. So I feel like we have to do our due diligence to make sure that we set a culture in a society in which the death that you die socially and the consequences socially are so great that that we can pull people away from doing those things because they think twice about that first before they think about whether or not they're going to get caught by the law.
I mean, someone made a comment that says in the same way, we can't really say that all cops are racist because of a few bad apples. And then I heard Dr. Freddie Haynes say something last night, and that's true. And I feel like it's the same way for cops as it is for black men in this specific case of this horrific thing that happened to our sister and her losing her life. I don't think that you can, throw away everybody because of a few bad apples. But if that same tree continues to produce bad apples, we got to start looking at the vine and really checking the roots to that tree. So I think that as a people, although it may not be every apple, we got to really dig down deep into the ground and figure out, why does this true, i.e. us Black men, why do we keep making such infractions? So it may not be subjective as us individually, but we have to really start having some serious conversations within our community, for sure.
And the unfortunate part about that, bro, is so like Mark just put the comment, it's like, am I responsible for, like, no, we're not responsible. But the unfortunate part is a lot of the conditions by which we have been subjugated under, Black men that have completely stripped us from dignity, that have completely stripped us from some social norms that we have been used to in our history as Black men. I think the problem is that a lot of those things that were put into our communities that we had nothing to do with pulled us away from it, pulled us away from our responsibility collectively in the community, to be leaders in our community, to protect our people, men, women, children, to protect our own. We've been pulled away from that a lot, and I think the issue is that a lot of the things that pull us away from it, we didn't do, right? We didn't put those things in our communities. We didn't implement the pipeline to prisons. We didn't implement the war on drugs. We didn't do that. But a lot of the impacts of that pulled us away from our communal authority and responsibility in our spaces and with our people. So that's the unfortunate part about that. So it's all really connected. And I think when we start looking deeper into how we uproot the bad tree, we're gonna see a lot of those impacts that we're gonna have to address.
Lawrence, with that, I completely agree, like 300%. I'm one of those people that I'm major just when looking at the grand scheme of a lot of different things, I'm major at looking at disease and not symptom. And maybe the base of this conversation was a symptom. And it's tough because we sit there and try to diagnose what's going on. My nose is bleeding, and we're trying to figure out but this is not our actual problem. And so, to what you just said, bro, you're 100% accurate. Is, like I said earlier, we cannot equate these things are not the same, and they're not the same statements. However, we do have work to do. There is a mirror that we have to look into as a people, and then even more specifically as Black men, things that we need to change. And this is not a personal thing, because like I said, some of us on the screen and in our communities where we are, there's a certain standard that we are looked to uphold. So not there, but when we're speaking generally, we're speaking about us, we're speaking about what we call ours. There's a work that needs to be done across the board. And it's all anti-system. And man, you really couldn't have worded it any better. I'm standing in agreement with you, bro.
So I want to go to Dr. Shonda because I feel like she want to tell us something.
Right. Yeah, I do. So I just want to address something real quick. So when we say that Black men were individuals as opposed to collectives, that's true. So there's a difference between us making that point and us trying to differentiate, like, oh, we can't say the same thing with police officers. The difference is white people don't have a history of being systematically oppressed and discriminated against in this country. That's why we can say that as a collective, that it's not just a bad apple problem. It's more so a systematic issue. In terms of the Black men, granted, I will never say that Black men have failed me, because again, collectively, I feel like Black men are amazing. And also will acknowledge, just like you guys did, that there are things that we can do to improve the relationship and the dynamics between Black men and Black women. Such as the conversation that we had earlier, where we had asked, like, can you protect someone who disrespects you? And that goes back to Jen, your point where you said your friends were basically indicating that I can't protect someone who is a feminist, or I can hold the door myself. Why do you have to feel respected in order to protect someone? That's decent. That's basically like you're right as a human to be able to just say I can protect this individual from being killed or being discriminated against, or racist acts, all these different things. It shouldn't be necessarily a matter of, oh, this chick disrespected me a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to protect her in that regard. It's more so a matter of like, this is our duty as basic humans, especially if you call yourself a Black man.
A Black man that's a believer. I saw, and I agree with most of the points, but I think when I saw the same status, I saw it more as a call of accountability than for blame. I feel that in our Black women sister circles, because we communicate more, especially as women, believers, we create spaces where I could check you, or she can check me, or I can say, girl, get yourself together. This is a mess. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? Like, let me help you get a job. Let me help you do X, Y, and Z. And I took that status as a call for accountability. Like, let's help each other, right? So we talk about, no, we don't say, because I was a sociology major as well, that one size fit all and everything is absolute, but there are some holes in the system, right? So we're talking about, like, well, maybe not y'all because we're us, but people who don't take care of their kids, like, that is not okay. Like, why is it that he's still socially acceptable in groups, and he don't pay his child support? Like, there are men in the pulpit that don't pay their child support. There are men, in our churches who have gotten multiple women pregnant, and nobody is saying, it's almost like boys will be boys, the good old boys club, when it's like, no, he needs to be held accountable. Just like back in the day when you
can we at least say that these are two different conversations? Can we at least say that?
Because it's all intertwined.
Why?
Conversation.
It's accountability. It's
How
accountability.
can we not separate the two conversations? This is the part that's unfair, where we say that's one conversation. As soon as you say but, you negate the first piece of that of the statement. It's only fair to say that it's two different conversations.
But why is it a different conversation if the conversation is about accountability?
They're not connected. They're not the same.
How are they not?
Not the same.
They're intricately intertwined.
Say that again.
They're intricately intertwined.
But I'm saying it's not the same. I can't say it's one and not everybody, and then I say, oh, but we need to go and do all of this. I'm just saying that is this not two conversations though? Because this is a whole.
I think the point kind of goes back to what Jen said initially, which was like the context in which she was stating it was that it wasn't about passing blame, but about accountability, right? And I think that's one conversation when we talk about the people who are in our circles, the people that we are intricately connected to, because I mean, let's just be honest, right? I'm not directly in both of your lives, right? But I would assume that the other two brothers on here are connected to a lot of other brothers, right? Black men. And when we are connected to one another, it's incumbent upon us to hold the people that we are connected to accountable. And we know people who, for instance, right? Like maybe I know one of the guys that I'm connected to is not treating his wife right, or maybe I know somebody that I'm connected to who's been entertaining inappropriate conversations, or you know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot of that happens, and when that happens, we got to be the ones that say, "Hey, listen, bro, I'm gonna hold you accountable. I'm gonna tell you that that's not right, and I'm gonna be a real brother to you, right? Because love is not just covering what you do, but it's correcting it to say, hey, listen, I don't want to see you continue to go down this path. I want to see you do the right thing. I'm going to hold you accountable to it. Accountability is one conversation.
But can I ask this, though? And first of all, guys, salute to everybody in the comments that's sharing this. Salute to everybody that's weighing in. Salute to these amazing voices on the screen, because this conversation makes us better. So I don't want anybody to think we're all on the same team. But I do have to say this. I keep hearing this recurring theme, just kind of looking at the comments, that no, it's not you, but it's your friends. It's not you, but it's the people that you know. Here's my response to that. I don't hang out with dirtbags. I mean, and I'm not trying to be
mean. Exception, but the thing is,
somebody is.
No. I hear you, but let's just look at this sample size. I think it's dangerous to make this whole argument of, no, it's not JC, but all those people that JC hangs out with, you got to speak up to them. Well, could it be that JC hangs out with Lawrence and Mark and Elijah, Like, I just don't want us to, I don't want us to cross the line of assuming, and I don't even want to say it that way. Maybe a bigger problem is we need to be more mindful of our associations, because here's the line that I think we're not factoring in. You cannot say, shout out to these men that walk in integrity, and assume that all of these men that walk in integrity have all of these dirtbag friends. Part of walking in integrity is I don't associate willingly and knowingly with people that are out here throwing their wives, against walls and stepping out and not paying their child support. The moment I find that out about you, we're not cool no more. So I think is that fair to add that element that maybe you're not seeing these guys proverbially speak to those guys because these guys and those guys don't hang out. I think that's a missing piece in the conversation. We're talking about like association.
You don't have to hang out with somebody to stand up and tell them that they're wrong. So if you do find out that somebody is beating their wife or doing something crazy, I think what Jen is saying, you then as a man of integrity have a responsibility to shine that light on them, because obviously the woman that he's beating has no voice and she can't make him see it. But another man who walks with a different standard then has that accountability. Now, if he doesn't try to change or whatever, then yeah, okay, we understand you disassociating, but it's not a matter of like just who you associate with either. I have family members that, like, going back to the don't take care of your kids, comment. I have family members that don't take care of their kids, right, or whatever. We all do.
No.
I don't hang out with this. I know. That's what I'm saying. I don't hang out with them either. But
so how can I tell you to hold them accountable?
When I have to be around them, it's girl, wash that baby's hair. Girl, girl, baby, go. Now stop being over here and go feed that baby. Go do that. Because in any sphere of influence that I can exercise, I'm going to. And that's what Jen is talking about. If you have a sphere of influence, even if it's a one contact moment, you're supposed to use your sphere of influence. That's what we're supposed to do as Christians. We're trying to use our sphere of influence to convince people of doing the right thing.
And I think the other part of that.
Somebody that's real. Praise God.
Hey. The other part of that too, though, with what Mark, in response to what Mark was saying, is the fact that we recognize that our circles are much wider than we initially see, and we are connected to people that we don't necessarily know we're connected to. So the friend that you wouldn't know is doing something that might be nefarious might be connected to some other people who are. And when you have the culture with that person of holding them accountable, that spreads, right? So they go to their group and they are emboldened to say, hey, that's not cool. So I think it's important, especially when you talk about the guys who are on this panel as leaders, right? As voices who are out here in this space, it's important that we know that our influence goes a lot further and wider than we may initially see with our friend group of guys. So when we set that culture and helping other guys hold other guys accountable, that's how we can help influence that, right? So it's not saying that I take personal responsibility for what happened, right? What it is saying is I am going to commit myself to growing a culture and influencing others to hold men, Black men, accountable for our communities and for our actions. I think that's kind of where we are with that.
Amen. Elise, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, actually, Mark wanted me to say something. Okay. So we were talking, and I think the accountability piece is amazing. And excuse me, guys, I was definitely not prepared to come on live today. Okay. Why I'm in the car and why I look like this, but yeah, I love y'all. Y'all love me.
We do.
But one thing we were talking about was maybe feeling it, and I guess he wanted me to ask you guys this just to see you guys' opinion on it. But do we feel like we're lumping this sad situation with our already outraged state as a Black community? Because at this point, I feel like we owe everybody that has been raped and killed or just had, really terrible circumstances. I feel like we owe them a post on social media, and I feel like we owe everybody something now, because I am questioning and I'm wondering if we are lumping these two things together.
I think I kind of am. I think it may not be the same thing, but I
Okay.
think that it should have the same outrage. Even in my experience, what the Me Too movement, right? It was like Me Too, but black girls. Like, so when somebody of that's not of color says that this person did something to me, it's like, oh, fire them. Like, what is happening? Don't, they're scumbags. But if Me Too and she looks like me, it's kind of like, you sure that happened? Like, you sure you didn't wear a provocative dress? Are you sure that your hips
Right.
wasn't, showing too much? Are you sure that that's what you sure you didn't like it? You sure you didn't want it? You sure you didn't welcome him into your space? So I think that they don't have to be the same thing for us to have some type of outrage. So I'm not faulting us. Like
Right.
Mark was saying, we didn't see it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if it matters that we didn't see it, especially when the guy that raped her or that is accused of this presented himself to be a man of God. So I think my only premise was, as we're coming together to fight the bigger narrative, how like let's really come together and value each other, so that no one is stumbled upon in the race, and no one is looked over, and no one feels
Absolutely.
as though they're not protected.
Absolutely. So
So
I'm sorry, Shonda.
you're good. Yeah, so
Okay.
I was gonna say, personally, I don't think that we're lumping the two together. I feel as though anytime there's a national tragedy, especially a tragedy in the Black community, there's a paradigm shift. And in that paradigm shift, there is a light being shown on everything, all the cracks and crevices, basically things that we should be doing, things that we should be discussing, things that we should be having a dialogue about. And so I feel like us experiencing this tragedy of this young woman who was raped and killed, that just highlights the importance of us being outraged with all of these scenarios. And I think that so I don't think that we're lumping the two together. I think that we're just all kind of becoming more woke about these issues and why we need to just dialogue about them more.
Okay, so I guess my question to that is, and I think that's amazing, but what do we do when we keep getting reports in the news and on social media that we had another Black girl who was violated or killed? Like, how do we handle something that happens so much that, we're not going to see on the news like we see police brutality? How do we handle it?
I would say continue with that same momentum that we have now. Continue to make laws in Congress, continue to protest, continue to make our voices heard, because at the end of the day, that's what's getting these changes made now. We have Breonna's law. We have all these different things that are happening on the political level because we're showing how outraged we are. And I don't think it's a matter of like, oh, we should be outraged about this and not that. We should, again, like make our voices and concerns heard so that we can continue to allow these changes to, be perpetuated in our community.
Mark said, here's the hard question. Does every murder get a march?
Wow.
I think the goal is that it no longer needs one. Right? Like, I think the goal is that we don't have to try to march for. And here's my thing. And Martin Luther King Jr. Said this, that laws don't necessarily change the heart of somebody, but it prevents the person whose heart won't change to like negatively impact me, like they can't kill me, right? And I think that's what we're saying, is that that we have a system in which, like, not saying that murders aren't going to happen, not saying that racism is not going to be out there, not saying that there's not going to be somebody tomorrow who goes out and does something against another person of color because of the fact that they are Black or a person of color. But what it is saying is that we're hoping that we can continue this momentum and marching and protesting and all that stuff to continue to lend the voice that this stuff is important, that we don't have to continue to do that. So no, every murder doesn't get a march, but we're hoping that there's going to be enough change that we don't have to march.
I want to clarify.
I feel like
because, and again, for those that are tuned in, share this because this is necessary dialogue. Here's my question. when I ask, does every murder get a march? I don't want you to hear that from an insensitive place. I want you to see it from the posture of, what are we asking for here? Because here's my thing. As sickening as that was, murder is already illegal. Homicide is illegal. Rape, sexual assault is illegal. So for us to say the system has to change in the context of a rape homicide, which is wrong, it's disgusting, it's reprehensible. My question is, what is the system that we're trying to change? Let me give you where I'm coming from. I was involved in a conversation with some clergy, and they were saying, in light of our sister's tragic passing in Florida, that we need to march against the system. And my question was, what system are we marching against? Because everyone universally agrees that was wrong. That's already illegal. So and again, I'm not asking from an antagonistic perspective. I think that this is, I know, because someone else asked me, I know that this is something that other people are wondering. When we're angry about things that are already illegal, what precedent are we setting here? That's the heart behind, does every murder get a march?
For me, I'm not asking for necessarily a march. I'm saying while we're out here marching against this system to defeat this broken system of white supremacy, I'm saying as I'm out here with my picket and I'm covering y'all and we're organizing and we're doing all this, I'm saying in-house family meeting, we need to get this together because this is trash.
Here's the problem with that though. We can't take an in-house conversation public because we don't like, that's the last thing we want, because then that opens us up to the black on black crime argument. And that's why I'm aware, I'm just trying to understand the timing right here, because we can't say black people need to hold black people accountable, which we do, and then say, don't y'all dare talk about black on black crime. We'll take care. I'm trying to make these two worlds reconcile. And again, there's no easy answer. I'm not trying to present it as a do this, don't do that. I just think we got to think through this, because what happened to our sister was tragic, but it's already illegal.
But it has to be some outrage. It has to be some outrage to say. So the people that you say you don't talk to this amount of people, you said that those dirt bags aren't your folks. Well, we need to let those dirtbags know that you're not on our side. You're an enemy of us too. So get in line, or we're trampling over you too. Like that's what I'm saying. So it doesn't have to be in the black on black crime, because we know that is a myth, but somebody has to hold somebody accountable. We can't say don't beat us, don't mishandle us, but then in our own quiet spaces, oh, he can do whatever he wants. He just, boys will be boys. He didn't mean to touch you, girl. He didn't mean to rape you. That never happened. Right. And we just keep going. No, that's toxic. That's trauma. Absolutely. And I think that's that mindset of what happens in this house stays in this house, which is very detrimental to what we have going on. So if we're gonna put it all on the table, let's put it all on the table. And no, you can't use this against us. We got some stuff, because y'all pedophiles too, right? Like y'all gotta hold. I can go on and on, but we need to. It can't be, because it's not. Oluwatoyin doesn't just represent herself. She's representing a group of women that has not been heard, of things that have been swept under the rug. And we cannot say that Black lives matter and Black women lives don't matter. It's not okay. It's not.
And I think that point right there is exactly why the cultural piece is prime for us. That it's happening in those conversations that aren't in the public space, that aren't all over social media. Yes, we should be outraged, but we should be so outraged that we go to the people that we know and we say that we have something, we got work that we got to do. And as men in our communities, we got to be the ones that lend our voice and our privilege as men to say that this is where it stops. And it's not to say that it's my fault, but when I look at the plight in my community, it may not be my fault, but it's my responsibility. I have to be the one to stand up. I have to be the one to call it out. I have to be the one that hold other men accountable, because it is on us. I am not the one that fractured the relationship between Black men and Black women. That was something that happened decades ago. But I am now in a position where I have to be responsible for what's happening in my communities. So we have that conversation. There should be outrage. It should be on a large scale. But at the same time, like Mark said, it doesn't have to be out here in the public, which is why it's important to have those one-on-one conversations with the circle of friends that you might not know are the dirt bags, right? Whether you know it or not. We're the ones who have to have those conversations and lead them and have our influence be the voices that say we got work to do within our communities, because look at this beautiful platform that we're on now, right? This is the He Say, She Say singles chat is a product of the influence of Elder Mark Moore Jr., right? So the influence goes far reaching and wide. We're not just simply talking to singles, we're talking to a community. Elder Mark Moore is not just talking to specifically ministers. He's media marketplace, right? Like ministry, but even far beyond that, we had politicians at the last YLC. There's a far-reaching thing here that goes based on our platforms and our influence. And when we can lend our voice to those platforms and influence to say we've got work to do in our communities, we can begin a cultural shift that says we will no longer tolerate culturally and socially. Because here's the truth of it, right? We know that the judicial system, not necessarily the legislative, but we know that the judicial system is not partial to us, especially our Black women. So there might be someone who has violated one of our dear sisters, and they will not be treated the way that they should be by the law because they don't care as much about them as we do. So we have to have
thank you, Lawrence, not to cut you off, I'm giving it back. But as long as we're clear in what we're mad about, that's what I'm saying. As long as we're clear on what we're shooting for, that's the purpose of this conversation, that we have clarity around the cause, because it's dangerous, it's detrimental to have misguided anger with nowhere to place it and nothing to request or demand, not request, but to demand as far as change is concerned. So that's the reason that we're asking these questions. So look, y'all are helping the people. Let's keep going.
But I have a question for you, Lawrence, just for the sake of conversation, Lawrence. Just as a brother, how do we facilitate these conversations, these in-home conversations to other brothers? Because you said, Mark, we're having this conversation because of Mark's influence and because of his platform. But there may be somebody who is watching us live who wants to have these conversations or who wants to challenge brothers, So is it that we use our influence? Do we just talk to brothers when we see them do something wrong? Do we set up times, actually schedule times within our communities or churches to actually address some of these issues, or do we do a little bit of both of those? So what do you think? How do we go about doing this if our platform isn't as grandiose as a YLC?
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the grandioseness of YLC didn't start that way, right? We know the testimony, right? It started off with 50 people in a room. And it's important to note, especially, and I would also lend this as well to anybody who's listening. Don't underestimate your reach and your influence. And the reason why I say that is because when Martin Luther King was starting his ministry and was starting his ministry of movements, right? Not just preaching, but his ministry of movements. It started off in a room with a few people. And he was gathering them together to say that we've got some issues that we have to address. And there wasn't large publicity about it. He wasn't on TV doing all these speeches. It started off really small, but they understood the importance of it, and people started talking about it. They started sharing the message, and it was something that they could all get behind. So I think to answer your question it's both, and it's having the one-on-one conversations, and it's setting those scheduled times to say, hey, listen, we've got some stuff that we have to address within our communities. Let's get together and talk about some possible solutions. It's interesting to note as well that when Martin Luther King Jr. was starting out in this movement, he was one of the least people to talk in his meetings. He set the meetings, they came together, but he listened to people talk about what was happening in the communities. He listened to their solutions, and he was the one who could be the hub to take it all in and say, okay, I hear what everyone is saying. I like this part of this solution. I like that part of the solution. So for those of us out there who are wondering about what the answers might be, could it quite possibly be that you're connected to people who have parts of the answer, and all you have to be is a conduit to let those be solutions within our communities? So I think it's both and. We have the meetings. We bring little small groups together. We hold our charrettes. We hold our one-on-one conversations, and then we let those be the catalysts for which we use to start to implement cultural and social change that can infect the hearts of people who have authority within the systems, because the systems don't change until the people who run them do. And if we can affect the culture and the society in which those people have to live and exist, then quite possibly we can impact the system itself, right? So we start there, I think, and by having all of those kinds of conversations and meetings, and then we can start to see some of the larger and wider changes that we need to see.
That's sure. That's good. I think that lends into what Jennifer said earlier, is how we sweep things under the rug. I think in our religious community, we raise and we have moments for that particular or these particular conversations, just like we have moments for tithing. You know, in our communities, we have those services where, oh, pastor's about to talk about tithing. It should be the same way with certain dates, with certain service. Like there should be certain things geared around us understanding where we're lacking in our community and getting better. And then as Lawrence, you just said, even in our circles, there should be that as well. And then if you go live and you're talking about certain things, for example, Shonda was live last night, and she was live speaking about certain things and certain issues. She had a guest, and her guest was amazing. It might not be 6,000 people. It might be 600 people. It might be 60. It might be 6. Every single person needs to hear. You don't know where that one view will come from that can change a situation that affects as a whole, right? One person sees something and it pulls them into a place of, of accountability. It pulls them into a place of conviction. And then because that one person saw it, we might have one less situation. And that's all we're looking for. We're looking to eradicate these situations, but we can only do it one by one. So it's just, as everyone has been saying, it's going to happen one conversation at a time, one sit down at a time, one event at a time, one Facebook Live at a time, as Mark said earlier. But we're going to do it one at a time, but it's going to have to keep on happening. And no matter how big or small the network or the platform is, it's going to have to happen.
Okay.
Lawrence had to step out for a second, but he'll be back. This is good. We're not going to be on much longer, but I do want to address my sister. I think this is Jennifer's friends, Lynette, and I'm trying to see my other sister on here. I think Natalie is her name. I want to, and I think we should probably shift to the conversation we probably need to close with, but I want to double down and be emphatic in my declaration that we do not have, in this climate, in this moment, we do not have time or influence for misguided actions. Let me give you an example. I live in Atlanta. I know where the Wendy's is that Rashard was shot at, okay? I've seen protests. I've seen people suggest in the last few days that we should boycott Wendy's because that's where Rashard was shot. What I would suggest, without hesitation or delay, is that yes, you have a right to boycott Wendy's if you want, but that is misguided energy because Wendy's does not affect policy change. And the more time we spend or waste, I'll say, being angry at Wendy's because the police shot an unarmed man in the back, we cheapen the value of our voice. And I don't want us to be so stuck in the fact that we got to do something. Yes, we got to do something. But I don't want us to be so stuck in trying to do something that we waste time, we waste energy, we waste momentum doing something that does not lead to change. So I want to be clear. When I talk about misguided actions, I'm not saying that we minimize the death or we minimize our sister in Florida or our brother in Brunswick who was jogging and executed by vigilantes, or George who took a knee to his neck, or any of the other unnamed, undocumented, unvideoed victims of crime. Because let's not get lost in the fact that just because we happen to see or we know some of these names, that they're the only ones. So all I'm suggesting is, and let's just think for a minute. Let's not get so caught up in the fact that we got to do something, that we do dumb stuff that dilutes our influence and our resources. So when I talk about misguided rage, boycotting Wendy's is misguided rage. Let's not be so whatever that everybody has a right to do what they want to do. Let's not do that to the point that we miss out on an opportunity to affect real change. So I just wanted to, Jocelyn said, that ain't Wendy's fault. I love their salad. We love their Frosties too. So all I'm saying is we can validate the pain and expect ourselves to make sound decisions. Because if we just out here boycotting and marching and protesting with no point, with no strategy, with no ask, with no demand, with no direction, then that's called misguided. So I don't want anybody to be offended by my use of the term to suggest that we don't have a right to be angry. We have a right to be angry. We must be angry. We have a righteous rage. But let's make sure that we target it in a way and target it in a direction that's going to end and result in change that will impact what we're legitimately angry about. Ayana said it best. We have to do something, but that doesn't mean we just do anything.
Right.
I hope that clears it up.
That nails it.
I mean, I just want to make sure Wendy's is on our side, because if they're not on our side, we can burn them all down. It's like, I'm just playing.
Burn it.
Jennifer's not feeling well. I'm trying to get Wendy's to be a sponsor. What are you doing? Yeah, so I wanted to make that clear, because some of us are so in love with our right to be angry that we don't stop long enough to say, hey, wait, where am I aiming this anger?
But I think,
internalized anger is toxic as well.
I agree with that, right? But I do think that some of us we're grieving. Like every day it's something. So I think that while we're trying to be proper and while we're trying to be calculated, when you turn on it, I mean, literally we're stuck at home, most of us, and it is exhausting. So I think that while we do need some direction, I think that's, I've also said, where's our leaders? Because everybody's doing everything, right? Like what are we supposed to, but what are we supposed to do? Because people are angry and they have the right to literally every day it's something that we're emotionally exhausted from, and that's just from the climate. That has nothing to do with what we are personally going through and the personal battles that we're facing. We're still facing an unemployment rate. People are out of work and still trying to figure this out, right? People don't have benefits and still trying to figure this out. So I think that's the thing. So I think as community leaders, as Christian leaders, then we need to ask the Lord to, where's Moses? Like, what is happening? What are we supposed to do next? Because if we don't have any direction, then we will continue to have all of the misguided anger, because nobody knows what to do. So you just gonna see that we mad and everything's gonna get burned to the ground.
We would have never heard of Moses if everybody else would have had social media when the children of Israel were enslaved. Did y'all hear what I said?
I heard you.
We never would have heard of Moses if everybody else had Facebooks and Twitters and Instagrams. Because part of the problem, like you're saying, Jen, is that everybody's, not to be deep or preach, but scripture comes to mind about the uncertain trumpet, or the sound of the uncertain. I'm messing it up so bad. Joe, help me out. But if they don't blow the right trumpet, how will people know how to move? And I think that's where we are right now. Everybody got a trumpet. Everybody got a spiritual triggers. And everybody, some of y'all saying shout, some of y'all saying worship, some of y'all saying this. And so it's what do we do? What do we do?
I agree and disagree, because I do think that leaders emerge, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have you. So we do have leaders.
You're right. You're right. But here, wouldn't you also suggest that it's hard to hear the leaders when it's harder to hear the leaders when everybody's talking. So I think you're thousands. There are people out here trying to make a difference. Dr. Shonda's on here, and she's part of the inspiration behind why YLC even has our Safe Spaces Counseling Center, our online counseling center, where people can call in Wednesday through Saturday and schedule appointments with licensed, accredited counselors of color to talk through some of this, because we need that. Now, that's part of our contribution to the struggle. We set up the $10,000 bail fund for those that are marching peacefully and get arrested for that. That's part of our contribution to the struggle. I just think that we have to, part of our problem, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but it's fine. Part of our problem is that everybody wants to be first. And when you're obsessed with being first, you're not nearly as concerned with being right. And you can apply this to media, to protests, to everything. And so when everybody's trying to be first, I got to do the thing first. I got to get the first response out. Sometimes we end up diluting our effort. And I think that that's where it's dangerous, y'all.
Okay. Well, we just going I mean, I don't even think we really have a conclusion. We just have to ask the Lord to help us, because we're still it's big, right?
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay in itself. Not having an answer is okay.
Right. And every good strategy that needs to be implemented takes time to develop it. Nothing that we're talking about is going to be resolved overnight. And, just like we said, George Floyd and all those other people, they weren't the first, and they're not going to be the last. Certainly, there's always something new coming up. But the fact is, now people are, I guess, motivated more enough to do something and not just be the angry bystanders. And I don't think it's wrong that we don't have a solution, but I think it is time for people to start uniting and working towards those who do.
I agree.
And I think that's why this moment is so special right now. Of course, their deaths are a tragedy, but it's important to recognize that we have a momentum that we haven't seen before. Well, at least in my lifetime, I've never seen this type of momentum before, to where people are marching in every single state. So I think it's time for us to really take advantage of this and to do what we need to do to plan, strategize, organize, direction, all those great things. But the Lord has to give us a leader to make it all happen. So, a lot of influencers, but not a lot of leaders.
And also to recognize that everybody has something to do, while everybody's role to play may not be as significant, but everybody has a measure of influence. Everybody has a measure of impact. And now it's just a matter of everyone doing what little bit that you can. Maybe you're not one to go out and protest, but maybe you are one to vote or educate others on voting. Maybe you don't do one thing, but you do something to help push the movement along.
Dr. Shonda, I would ask you this, and you make a great point. I would just ask you this, just to see what you think of this. Maybe this time around we don't get one voice. Maybe this time around, and looking even into the name of this conference and this movement, Young Leaders Conference, maybe at this juncture, it's going to take all of us and not one Martin Luther King. And maybe in the midst of that conversation, maybe the group of leaders this time around are just set to be accountable instead of answering to. We come on this platform, we're here. I'm very sure of this. If I were to go in the wrong direction, or if I were to get on a live and say something that didn't line up, I would hear from Jennifer, I would hear from Lawrence, I would hear from Dana, I would hear from everyone on this screen saying, why did you do this? Why did you say this? This and whatever you did or whatever you said, it didn't line up with what we're trying to do. It didn't line up with what we're trying to be. And thirdly, and most importantly, it didn't line up with the person that you're supposed to be. And so maybe this time around, it is our jobs individually as leaders to hold up that bloodstained banner. But then when we come on this back end, which is platforms like this, when we get around and sit and talk, and when we hold ourselves, maybe in those settings, it's a space for accountability to now pop up. And now we say, Lawrence, good job here. What do you think about this? Maybe we clean this up a little bit. What do you think about that, Doctor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I definitely hear that, and I definitely hear that, and also I'll say, like, you know, when I said there's a lot of influencers and not a lot of leaders, I'm saying in terms of like organizing change, like from a historical perspective. And maybe you guys can recall one, but I've never identified a movement when there wasn't a specific leader or a group of leaders who facilitated change. Like, of course, you have voices that uplifted things and who, said notable notions and things of that nature. But historically in America, I just never seen that happen. Maybe this is the generation that will, do that. But so it's in the Lord's hands.
I think that Dana said something, and I'll close us here, that everybody can do something. And I believe that if we operate in our grace and in our sphere of influence, then we will get where we need to go. Like, just like I believe that the Lord has graced me to initiate conversations for singles. I believe that there is someone graced for this racial race. That there is someone graced for community activism, and that I can get behind them, and then we can move it forward, right? So my family is only family of color. Sorry, guys, I'm reading this comment.
Oh wow.
First time in 60
That's
years.
that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. Why can't we ever? Wow.
Right.
Yeah. So like Dr. Shonda said, like, this is a time that we've never seen before. But I do think one thing, to Dr. Shonda's point, is that don't be the person that does all the talking and don't have any action. We don't have time for just bystanders to be doing these empty critiques and nobody has a mantle to push forward. Like, we don't have time for that. So do your part, operate in your grace, and ask the Lord to give you divine strategies for your assignment in your circle of influence. So we're getting ready to get up out of here. Anybody got anything else to say? And I also want to say this before I like to drop a little bomb. This is why we got to have more than just entrepreneurs, because somebody need to be a lawyer and a councilman, because we need to infiltrate the system so we can attack the system, right? Everybody.
Well, I said that multiple times. We don't necessarily need more preachers. We need more judges. We need more lawyers. We need more mayors. Because it's not just that we need Black whatever. We need Holy Ghost filled Black politicians who will change the laws, change legislation, enforce policies according to the word and God's standards, as opposed to being moved by what people want and people's standards.
Yeah, absolutely. So we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to another week of He Say, She Say Singles Chat. Make sure that you are following our page. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. We have Preacher Talk up next. So I know that's going to be an incredible conversation. So we thank you guys so much just for being with us, for rocking with us, for commenting, for sharing. And we will see you back again next Wednesday for another episode. We love you guys. Have a great night.